First thing we want to do is to get ready for what's going to happen later on. So I want to grease the muffin pans. Grease is just a cooking term though. It doesn't mean grease. It means put fat onto it. So the fat that you would use is it's usually a shortening or a lard. If you use butter or margarine, it has salt in it and it actually makes things stick instead of helping loosen them off out of the pans. You can use a little piece of wax paper if you like. However, it's faster and very thorough to just use your finger. We've washed my hands and we handle food. We have to handle food with our fingers. So there's no reason why I can't use my fingers. Now, the other thing that we want to get ready is the oven. We will make sure that the oven racks are in the right position. I'm going to be cooking more than one batch of muffins here before we're finished, so I've got them in the two positions where they're a third and a third. And we'll set the oven for 375. The muffin method, as we call it, is the easiest method of baking. We can bake, it's called the muffin method, but you can bake other things using this method. It really is just using 2 bowls, and I'm all in favor of just using 2 bowls. So the big bowl is going to have the dry things put in it, and the small bowl is going to have the wet things put in it. I wanted you to see how we store flour ready for baking. When you store them, try to find containers that are big and have wide open tops so that you can get in with your spoons and your measuring cups. And make them seal down, but don't try to measure out of the bag. It's too awkward. So when you are going to put new flour in, be sure that you've taken every scrap of the old flour out and start out with a clean bin, and then you won't have any problem with your flour. Keep it all fresh, although flour does keep for a long time. To measure flour, I'm going to put in 1/2 of all-purpose and 1/2 of whole wheat flour. The all-purpose flour has more gluten and so on in it, but this is a bran recipe, so we're putting in lots of bran. So sometimes the white flour gives it a little bit more lightness, but I'm going to put in just 1/2 of each. So whenever you can, use whole wheat flour, but we are very conditioned to white products, and you have to get used to it. So one way of getting your family used to using more whole grain products is to just gradually mix the 2 of them until eventually you're using completely whole wheat flour. Be sure you lift your flour and lighten it all up, because this is the only way you can get accurate measure. Flour settles. It is sifted, but that just means it doesn't have lumps in it. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the right lightness. So now scoop it into your measures lightly. Now don't shake your measure or pack it or knock it in any way, because you've just ruined what we were trying to do. So spoon it lightly and then level it off with a level edge. It's important that you be accurate in baking. In cooking, you can be a little bit more, use your own discretion a little bit in what you want, but in baking, be accurate. So it's 1 cup of flour altogether. You could have used all-purpose or all whole wheat. I just chose to use 1/2 and 1/2 today to show you how. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. You can, in the package, it will give you an opportunity to just measure right like that so that you get level. All measurements are level. So it's 1 teaspoon of soda. It's a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And this is why I don't use the box, because there's no way I can measure a 1/2 teaspoon level. I always find a little container to put some salt in and have it marked iodized salt. Now, the same thing with bran. Bran will settle. Get a nice light measure. Don't shake or knock or pack that cup, or you'll have more bran in it than you should, which means that you'll have a heavier muffin. All right. It pays to organize your kitchen in such a way that you can just read things off your shelves and out of your cupboards and then put them back as you're done. It just is a lot of energy saving. Now, if we're going to put raisins in these bran muffins, now would be the time to do it. And we can put about 1/4 cup of raisins in. We need the brown sugar. Quarter cup. Work them around with your fingers a little bit. Just to separate them so that one person doesn't get 5 raisins in your muffin and somebody else gets none. Now we want to put some sugar in. Brown sugar, or white sugar, but brown sugar just gives us that little bit more flavor. So we want 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Measuring brown sugar is always done packed. And that's why I like to keep my brown sugar right in the plastic container. It seals it down. If it gets a little dried out, you can put some bread in it, but it'll stay fresher and moister in the plastic bag than it will by putting it out into a container. When you measure it, put your measure in, and just use the side of the bag to push it. And you can level it off even, like that. So it's packed. So there we have a measure of brown sugar. When we pop it into the bowl, looks like a sandcastle. So let me just check. We got everything in here. Flour, teaspoon of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 cups of bran, 1/2 cup of white or brown sugar. I use brown for the flavor, but brown sugar is a little more expensive than white sugar, but it does add to the flavor. And raisins. So that's everything that pops into the one bowl. We're going to set that bowl aside for a moment. We're going to do it with the other bowl. And in this, we have 1 cup of sour milk. Sour milk and buttermilk can be interchanged, so I could have used a cup of my homemade buttermilk in here instead, which would have enhanced the flavor really well too. 1 egg and 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, and this is what makes the muffin method. The oil is always a liquid, whether you have melted margarine or whether you are using oil, and oil is by far the handiest way to do it. Now you have to squat down to eye level when you're measuring and look at it eye level. Do not hold it like this because we can't hold it level. I can get anywhere from 1/4 cup to 1/3 cup just the way I'm tipping it. So be sure your level, your cup is on the level, and you squat down and look straight in so that you're getting an accurate measure. Put all the liquids in one bowl. Now we have to beat. Beat is a cooking term. We could use a fork, we could use a whisk, we can use a rotary beater like this, which is really better, or if you have a little electric hand mixer, fine. But we want to beat. Beat means to mix it together vigorously, and that incorporates a bit of air. You can see all the air bubbles coming. Air is also a leavener as well as baking soda and baking powder. So beat it up. Now just double check your recipe that you've got everything like we do. We did check this one, 1 cup, 1 egg, and 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. Now we're ready to mix.